More than any other group of birds, sparrows define landscapes across North America with their songs. Southern pine forests and the Bachman's sparrow, northern prairies and the Baird's sparrow, California chaparral and the black-chinned sparrow, the great sagebrush expanse of the west that rings with springtime chorus of brewer's sparrows, mountainsides in Alaska and Canada, and the golden-crowned sparrow.
They even bring music to the treeless expanse of the Arctic tundra. We've been working on sparrows for 3 years, trying to capture their songs with sensitive microphones and their images with long lenses. They're a widespread group of birds, so we've traveled from Florida's Everglades to the Arctic tundra of Canada and Alaska, looking for sparrows in their breeding habitats.
It's hard to fit something that's as wild and diverse and part of big landscapes as sparrows are into a neat package for a TV screen, but that's what we tried to do. And we started by filming and recording a male of each species in its breeding habitat singing.
We've arranged the birds in close to a taxonomic order, like most field guides are arranged. That way you can use a field guide as you watch to consult range maps and look at some of the different plumages.
But the best way to enjoy sparrows is to go into the field with them. Or in the case of sparrows, to the prairies or to the deserts.
Or the tundra, or sometimes the woods. There's sparrows everywhere.
They're great birds. We hope you enjoy them.
The green-tailed towhee is distinguished by a reddish cap and olive green upper parts and tail. It breeds in a wide variety of shrubby habitats at fairly high elevations in the west, like this gooseberry-filled opening near the top of California's Mount Pinos. Its striking white chin is bordered by black and then white stripes. They're secretive ground foragers who tend to stay near the cover of thick brush, coming out in the open only occasionally to sing.
Dense brush, woodland thickets, and forest edges are homes to the eastern towhee. The male's dark hood and back are set off by a rufous side patch. Females have brown plumage where males have black. Most have dark red irises in their eyes. But in Florida and in a few other areas of the southeast, there are towhees with yellow irises. Eastern towhees breed in most of eastern North America, from southern Canada to Florida. They migrate south in winter from the colder parts of their range, but are year-round residents in the southeast. White patches in its outer tail feathers are easily seen in flight. There's much variation, but their primary song has been translated by generations of birdwatchers as "Drink Your Tea."
While eastern towhees are found in the east, Spotted towhees are widely distributed across the West. In the northern Great Plains, they nest in dense shrubs that grow where there's enough water. The spotted towhee is distinguished by the white spots on its back and wings. In western mountains, they sing from riparian thickets, canyon bottoms, and other brushy habitats at mid-elevations. There's much variation in song between different regions, and each individual also has a repertoire of its own. But almost all songs have a ringing trill at the end. Spotted towhees along the California coast usually sing just a trill. They reach high densities here in the chaparral that covers the coastal ranges. Spotted towhees also have loud and distinctive calls that are often described as cat-like.
There are rare places in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona and surrounding states where enough water still flows to support trees and dense brush. These oases of green are the homes of Abert's towhees. Though most of Arizona's riparian habitats have been altered or destroyed by human activities, the San Pedro River of southeastern Arizona is protected for now, and its forest of cottonwoods and willows is a stronghold for Abert's towhees. They're large cinnamon brown sparrows with long tails and dark faces. Unlike most sparrows, Abert's towhees seldom sing, but announce their territories with a peep call. They mate for life and stay in their desert homes year-round. The sound most often heard from them is a squeal duet, given by both members of the pair when they join each other. A good way to find towhees is to listen for this sound. They're experts at the double scratch technique of foraging. Vigorous jumps back and forth to remove dried litter and expose hidden treats.
As their name implies, California towhees are mostly found in California and in Baja California. They're fairly common in a wide range of habitats, from dry chaparral in the semi-arid uplands to urban gardens, yards, and parks. Landscapes with open ground for foraging and nearby dense vegetation for safe cover and nesting. California towhees are mostly grayish-brown, with patches of cinnamon orange under their tails and on their faces, and an indistinct necklace of dark spots. Their diet is mostly plant material, usually seeds. Like other towhees, they use the double scratch method, a hop forward and scrape back. Mated males seldom sing, but bachelor California towhees are one of the first birds to start singing in the morning and in the spring. They usually mate for life and stay together through the year. They begin nesting early in the season and renest often and quickly when nests fail.
Canyon towhees live in the deserts of the southwestern states and central Mexico, in a wide range of habitats, from brushy desert grasslands to riparian woodlands. In wild landscapes, they're often shy and difficult to find, but their adaptable behavior has allowed them to move into desert foothill suburbs, where they often become quite tame around their human neighbors. They have a light throat patch outlined with dark marks, buffy orange under their tails, and a rufous crown patch. Adult canyon toads eat mostly seeds, but feed insects to their 3 to 5 fast-growing young. They keep their nest clean by swallowing or carrying away fecal sacs. They mate for life and stay on their territories year-round, and so are often able to raise 2 or even 3 broods in a long breeding season that usually lasts from March to September.
When it sings, it can't be missed. But the olive sparrow has a well-deserved reputation as a furtive skulker in stands of dense and thorny brush. It's often identified by the sharp call that it uses to stay in contact with its mate. The olive sparrow is a resident of semi-arid subtropical areas in Mexico and Central America. In the U.S., it's found only at the southern tip of Texas in stands of thick scrub. It's a plain sparrow, olive green above, grayish below, with a narrow brown eye stripe and 2 wide crown stripes. It spends most of its life hidden, but in the spring, males emerge from the thicket to perform their loud, bouncing ball songs.
Though they're considered drab and shy, Bachman's sparrows are inspired vocalists. They nest on the ground in open habitats with a dense layer of grasses and forbs. The pine woodlands of the southeastern U.S. are a favored breeding habitat. As mature forests have been harvested and replaced with fast-growing pine plantations, Bachman's sparrows have declined dramatically. In much of their range, where there are no longer mature pines, they manage to hang on in grassy habitats like clear-cuts and grazed pastures. They sing all day from early spring through the summer, often starting before sunrise. Sometimes they even sing on moonlit nights. Each male has a repertoire of introductory buzzes and whistles, which he combines with different trills for an impressive variety of songs.
In the far south of Texas, and here in the southeastern corner of Arizona, 2 distinct populations of a predominantly Mexican species are found in pockets of healthy grasses, dotted with low trees or shrubs. Vatteries seems to be a drab sparrow until it sings. Its loud and repetitive song is most easily heard in late June and early July, when egg-laying begins. After the summer rains bring a bloom of plant and insect life to the desert.
It's summer in southeastern Colorado, where a cassin sparrow flutters his wings and tail excitedly as a female forages in the sagebrush. He communicates with her using his chitter call. They're secretive and plain, but for me, their song is the most beautiful of all the sparrows. Cassin sparrows are birds of the arid shrub grasslands of Mexico and of the southwest and central high plains states. Their numbers and range fluctuate dramatically from year to year, most likely in response to rainfall patterns. Sometimes, especially early in their breeding season, cassin sparrows perform their lovely songs with a flight display called skylarking.
In southern Arizona, a rocky canyon wall with scattered brush. Or in Texas, a hillside on the Edwards Plateau with an open forest of juniper and oak. These are just two of the many dry, brushy habitats scattered throughout Mexico and the southwestern U.S., where rufous-crowned sparrows live. It's a shy sparrow, but in the spring males emerge from the brush to sing their jumbled notes from open perches. Its rufous crown is its most notable field mark, but it's also distinguished by dark markings called malar stripes under its beak, a whitish eye ring, and rufous stripe behind its eye. The Sonoran Desert of southern Arizona is the year-round home of one of the rarest sparrows in the U.S. The rufous-winged sparrow sings all through the year. It has a large repertoire of songs, some that sound like towhees. Rufous-winged sparrows need habitats with open grassy areas and scattered spiny trees and shrubs, usually near desert washes. It's a landscape that has been greatly reduced in Arizona by grazing and by urban development. This bird's rufous wing patch and crown stripes are evident as it forages in the shady brush. An eye stripe and dark stripes below the bill give its face a distinctive pattern. They may be the most dependent of North American birds on the desert rains that bring a brief bloom of grass seeds and insects and give them a short 6 to 8 weeks to raise their young. Strong feet develop first and allow chicks to leave their nests at only 8 days. They spread out in the thorny brush and use high-pitched calls to stay in touch with parents, who feed them until they can forage for themselves at about 23 days.
There may be no more than 100 individuals of the boldly patterned five-striped sparrow in the U.S. It's primarily a Mexican species, whose range just reaches into the arid mountains of southeastern Arizona, where there are a few canyons with year-round water and steep slopes covered with mixed vegetation. They sing all through the day from prominent perches. Their 5 head stripes make them easy to identify even at a distance. Five-striped sparrows begin breeding with the start of the summer rains. Their song is actually quite simple, an introductory note followed by two or more note complexes. It's their large repertoire that's remarkable. Up to 200 different songs in some individuals.
The American tree sparrow was named by early settlers for its resemblance to the Eurasian tree sparrow. They have rusty caps, yellow lower mandibles, and a distinctive dark spot on their breasts. They're common in gardens and at bird feeders throughout most of the U.S. during the winter and in migration. But in springtime, tree sparrows head to the remote areas of tundra and permafrost in Canada and Alaska, where only stunted trees and small shrubs can gain a foothold. Males sing through the day from exposed perches. In some areas of the Arctic, especially near water, their clear musical songs are the most common and persistent sounds.
Over almost all of North America, from Nicaragua to the Arctic, wherever there are trees with open spaces, the chipping sparrow can be found. Its simple trill is a familiar sound. Chipping sparrows accept a wide variety of forest openings and are easily found in suburban yards and around farms and orchards. They prefer conifers. Since they share our preference for landscapes of open grassy areas surrounded by bushes and trees, chipping sparrows have benefited from human settlement. During the breeding season, its song, chestnut crown patch, and strong eyeline make it easy to identify.
The neat, handsome plumage of the clay-colored sparrow defies its dull-sounding name. A widespread breeder in the northern states and much of Canada, it accepts a wide range of open, shrubby habitats, from prairie scrub communities like this one in northern Wisconsin, to abandoned fields, regenerating burns, and sometimes even city parks. It has a median crown stripe, strongly outlined brown ear patches, and a gray collar that contrasts cleanly with the rest of its plumage. In the spring, the clay-colored sparrow is easily recognized by its strange song. Two to eight low, flat buzzes, sung by the male from conspicuous perches.
In springtime and summer, the Great Basin becomes a concert stage for brewers' sparrows. Except for a delicate pattern of stripes on their crowns, their plumage is subtle in color and pattern. It blends well with the carpet of grass and sagebrush that covers the arid landscape, where they can be the most abundant bird during breeding. They're well adapted to this harsh and unpredictable climate and can go for long periods without drinking water. They're declining throughout their range, however, as vast areas of sagebrush prairie are being altered by grazing, agriculture, and introduced plant species. Two types of song, short and long, are sung through the breeding season and occasionally even in the winter. Though they're most common here in the Great Basin states, there's a subspecies called the timberline sparrow in high mountain shrublands from Montana to Alaska.
Though the field sparrow is plain-looking, it's distinguished by a beautiful song of accelerating pure notes. They breed throughout eastern North America in brushy habitats like old fields, woodland edges, roadsides, and fence rows. As with most sparrows, both parents feed the young. Sparrows are good at nest sanitation. Nestlings often defecate after being fed, so parents wait, sometimes prodding the young for a fecal sac. They have smudges of rusty brown on their heads, noticeable white eye rings, and pink bills. Though adult sparrows eat a lot of seeds, especially during the winter, nestlings are raised on a high-protein diet of spiders and insects. Caterpillars are often on the menu. These tiny young, with their eyes just opened, are probably about 4 days old. They'll be feathered and out of the nest by day 8, and surviving on their own in about a month. Often an inconspicuous sparrow, the black-chinned stays near the protective cover of shrubs. They're most easily seen during breeding, when males sing from exposed perches in dry, brushy habitats of the southwestern U.S. They're found in a variety of scrublands, usually on rugged slopes like these in the Laguna Mountains of Southern California. In the right conditions, their ringing songs can be heard up to a mile away. Its gray plumage contrasts with rusty brown on wings, tail, and back.
The Vesper sparrow is named for its sweet and persistent song, which often lasts well into the twilight hours. But it's also been called the bay-winged bunting in honor of the rufous patch on the bend of its wing. Very apparent on this North Dakota male, the patch is not visible on all. One of the most streaked of sparrows, dark brown streaks on a white breast and brownish-gray back. Delicate streaks around its neck and on its crown. It also has a thin whitish eye ring and a distinct cheek patch. Vesper sparrows breed in a variety of open grassy habitats with good elevated singing perches. They're widespread across much of the northern half of the U.S. and southern half of Canada, but their numbers are declining, especially in eastern states, as farmland and pastures are reforested or urbanized. They need open ground for foraging and for building their nests, which are usually located in a hollow and concealed by grass or low plants. 3 to 5, sometimes even 6 chicks are fed by both parents. Small and helpless at about 2 days old, with their eyes still closed, chicks are fed regular insect meals. Vesper sparrows are adaptable and known to adjust quickly to changes in the landscape. Unfortunately, this trait leads many to nest in cultivated fields that are often harvested or plowed before their chicks have fledged. The lark sparrow is easily identified by its colorful head pattern, the dark spot on a white breast, and the white corners on its tail that show well in flight. They're widespread west of the Mississippi and nest in a great variety of habitats: open grasslands with scattered trees and shrubs, or on the edges of grasslands, where they start to fill in with woody vegetation. They also nest in disturbed landscapes that are growing back from fire, overgrazing, or farming. They perform their melodious, jumbled songs all through the day, from open perches, up high, or sometimes on the ground. They're ground foragers that eat seeds and insects and show a definite preference for grasshoppers.
The black-throated is a standout among sparrows. With its bold black and white pattern on breast and head and a large repertoire of songs, it defines the western deserts more than any other sparrow. Black-throated sparrows breed in arid scrublands, from central Mexico to southern Washington state. Here on Arizona's Tonto Plateau, they're on a hillside where mesquite and low junipers grow, but they're found in a variety of dry, shrubby habitats. They're ground foragers, but they're not shy. Males sing through the day from conspicuous perches. In springtime, the dry sagebrush expanses that stretch from the western slope of the Rockies to California ring with the songs of the sage sparrow. Sage sparrows are unusual among songbirds in that they arrive on the breeding grounds already paired. While females run along the ground and explore low brush for possible nest sites, their mates stand guard above, singing and following them from bush to bush in what can be a 12-day search for just the right place to build. A strongly marked face with white eye ring and white patch in front of its eye are distinctive. One darker plumaged subspecies of the sage used to be considered a separate species, Bell's sparrow. They're found in coastal sage scrub and in dry chaparral of the low mountains and foothills of western California. Lark buntings perform their songs and aerial displays in grassland and brushy habitats across the Great Plains. Every spring, male lark buntings molt from dull brownish birds in their basic plumage to one of the most boldly patterned of all sparrows in their striking alternate plumage. They're stocky, large-billed sparrows with an attention-getting song flight that's often called skylarking. They breed in what appear to be loose colonies and are very attentive to each other's displays. One bird's flight will often set off neighboring birds, who will fly toward the first bird. There can be several birds displaying simultaneously to get the attention of a female, whose plumage is a cryptic streaked brown. Their complex social structure includes bigamists, monogamists, bachelors, and even nest helpers.
It's widespread, abundant, and a very enthusiastic singer. But the savanna sparrow is often overlooked in the open country it inhabits. It breeds across North America, in prairies, cultivated fields, meadows, lightly grazed pastures, tundra, and other open grasslands with a few weedy plants to provide perches. Not even stable perches required. There are many subspecies with differing sizes and plumages. A North Dakota bird has typical breast stripes, head stripes, and a yellowish eyebrow. A paler savanna sparrow sings in Homer, Alaska. On the coast of Southern California are some of the darkest forms of savanna sparrow. This population used to be considered a separate species, called Belding sparrow. A lot of yellow in its face and heavy dark breast streaks. Savanna sparrows along the California coast are surrounded by waterfront developments that alter their salt marsh habitats. Several populations have already disappeared. Early on a morning in May, Belding savanna sparrows display their fierce territoriality. Males sing frequently from favorite perches. They keep a watchful eye out for trespassing neighbors and are often known to give chase. Its short, buzzy song carries through the wind of a fallow field in Virginia. In eastern regions of the U.S., grasshopper sparrows breed in drier fields and pastures, where there's plenty of bare ground for foraging. In the Great Plains and western states, they prefer brushy areas in prairies and grasslands. They're a secretive bird that stays low to the ground, except during the breeding season, when males make their rounds of favorite perches to defend territories with the insect-like song for which they're named. Grasshoppers are one of the few North American sparrows that sings two completely different songs. A primary song that seems to be territorial consists of 1 to 3 short notes, followed by a long insect-like one. A more complex, sustained song is one that females respond to, and so is thought to be important for pair bonding. When you're in the presence of a Baird sparrow, then you know you've found a piece of high-quality prairie. They spend most of their lives down in the grass, but during breeding, males move up to perches to send their unmistakable songs through the prairie winds. The Baird sparrow has a buffy median crown stripe, a necklace of fine black streaks, and a bold pattern of dark and light feathers that almost look like scales. They used to be common summer residents of the mixed grass prairies that once stretched across the northern Great Plains. But plowing, overgrazing, and introduced plant species have destroyed much of their habitat, and Bairds are now rare throughout their range. One of the most difficult to see, the Henslow sparrow is a secretive bird of the tall grass prairie and of dense grasslands. Its breeding range extends from the east coast west to Kansas, South Dakota, and Oklahoma. But it's disappeared from many areas and is declining rapidly. It requires large areas of grassland or prairie with a well-developed litter layer and standing dead vegetation, a landscape that's been largely eliminated by modern agriculture. The most common view of the LeConte sparrow is of a small brownish bird scurrying like a mouse through thick grasses. It breeds in wet grasslands and undisturbed pastures of central Canada and of the northern Great Plains of the U.S. It doesn't flush easily, but sometimes pops out of the grass for a quick look around or to sing its insect-like song from a perch on higher grass stalks. Richly colored and patterned, LeConte sparrow has a bright buffy face, a median crown stripe, and streaks on its back. Plus, a very short, pointed tail.
To me, the strangest sparrow song of all belongs to the Nelson's sharptail. It breeds in a variety of wetlands and locations, from freshwater prairie marshes, like this one in North Dakota, to sedge bogs along the Hudson and James Bays, to East Coast salt marshes. Besides its unusual song, it's distinguished by a deep golden orange face and breast, a contrasting gray ear patch and breast streaks. Western nesters like this one also have white streaks across their deep chestnut backs. Along the coasts of the Maritime Provinces and northern New England, they sing from tidal salt marshes, like this one in Maine. Coastal salt marshes from Virginia to Maine are the nesting grounds for a close relative of the Nelson's sharp-tailed sparrow that was considered the same species until 1995, the salt marsh sharp-tailed sparrow. They also have a deeply colored face and a gray ear patch, but the salt marsh sharp-tailed sparrows have crisper, more defined stripes on a whiter breast. Salt marsh sharptails don't form pair bonds or defend territories. Males roam the marsh, attempting to mate with any female they find. In this marsh in Maine, after a very high tide has destroyed many nests, the males are highly agitated, on the lookout, because there are receptive females in the marsh, ready to re-nest. Perhaps because it has no normal territory to advertise, the salt marsh sharptail sings a whispery song at unpredictable times and places.
Seaside sparrows nest in winter mostly in the narrow band of salt and brackish marshes along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. They're well adapted for life in tidal marshes, with especially large feet for walking on mud and long bills for probing. They need habitats with open areas along creek edges and pools, and on flats, where they can forage in mud and at the bases of plants. When marshes are altered by ditches, dikes, draining, or filling, whole populations of seaside sparrows can be lost. Another necessity in a seaside sparrow habitat is a place to build a nest that's above flood tides. In northern populations, high tides combined with spring storms are the biggest cause of nest failure. They raise 2 to 5 young in a nest that can be built in a variety of vegetation types, or even in tidal debris, but they prefer a clump of grass. These chicks, with their eyes still closed, are probably only 1 or 2 days old and are still brooded by the female since they cannot yet regulate their own temperatures. There are several subspecies of seaside sparrow, usually separated by unusable habitat along the narrow coastline. This is the endangered Cape Sable subspecies, very white below with strong streaks and a distinctly marked face. Cape Sable seaside sparrows breed in the freshwater prairies of Florida's Everglades. Though they've been brought nearly to the point of extinction by projects that altered the flow of water to the Everglades, they're now being carefully studied and protected, and may avoid the fate of their eastern Florida relative, the dusky seaside sparrow, which went extinct in 1987. Along the Gulf Coast near Tallahassee, a more olive-brown seaside sings in the grass. Though there's much variation, seasides from the Florida Panhandle to South Texas tend to be more streaked than their Atlantic coast relatives.
Fox sparrows are large, loud, and highly variable in song, pattern, and color. The many subspecies fall into clear groups, so the fox is a candidate for splitting into 4 separate species. All are birds of dense brushy thickets or scrubby conifers. The aptly named thick-billed fox sparrow belts out its songs in the mountains of California and Oregon. The more southern populations have the largest bills, but all have a slate-colored head and reddish wings and tail. Each individual sings a variety of different songs. Slate-colored fox sparrows breed in the interior mountains of the northwestern U.S. and southern British Columbia. They usually nest near water. During spring, males are easily heard singing their repertoire of loud, cheery songs. Brown tail, wings, and breast spots contrast with a gray head. The red fox is probably familiar to the most American birders because it winters over much of the eastern half of the U.S. and along the west coast. It breeds here in northern Canada and in interior Alaska. Along the coast, from northern Washington state to the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, the sooty fox sparrow breeds in some scenic locations. There's much variation in fox sparrow plumage, even within subspecies. This sooty in Homer, Alaska, is more lightly spotted than its neighbor, and sooty foxes at the southern end of their range can be much darker.
One of the most familiar birds in North America. The song sparrow is at home across the continent in a variety of open, brushy habitats, usually near water. A male singing near a coastal Virginia salt marsh has dark streaks across a white breast that converge in a central spot. His back is streaked rusty brown. With more than 24 different subspecies, the song sparrow shows great geographical variation. On the other end of the continent, near Haines, Alaska, a different-looking song sparrow sings a different song. Darker overall, this one's breast streaks are smudgy and match rufous head and back plumage. Besides the variety of songs between subspecies, each individual sings several different versions as well, but they usually start with 3 notes and have a trill.
Lincoln sparrow has a well-deserved reputation as an elusive bird, but in its wet, remote breeding ground, its rich warbling song is unmistakable. Thin streaks across its buffy breast and flanks, and a grayish face with a distinct white eye ring give the Lincoln sparrow a delicate appearance. They breed in the boreal forests of the northern U.S. and Canada, where they prefer boggy areas, like this one with stunted tamarack and spruce. They also nest in wet meadows and riparian areas of the western mountain ranges.
A sparrow that's closely associated with watery places is the appropriately named swamp sparrow. They nest in a variety of different wetlands with standing shallow water, dense cover, and emergent vegetation that provides perches from which they sing their loud and persistent songs. Swamp sparrows are well adapted for life on the water. Their legs are especially long so that they can wade. They've even been observed looking underwater for prey like dragonfly larvae. A deep rufous crown patch and streaked back contrast with a gray breast that has a subtle dark spot in the center. One of the most common wintering and migrant birds in eastern North America becomes the song of the Northwoods in spring. The white-throated sparrow's pure whistle resonates from edges and openings in mixed and pine forests over a vast area of the northeastern U.S. and Canada. They have a mating structure like no other bird. Throughout their range, there are dominant individuals, both male and female, with bold white head stripes, like this one's. And there are birds with tan head stripes and duller plumage. The more aggressive white-striped birds nearly always mate with less territorial tan-striped birds. And it's been discovered that these different plumages and behaviors are associated with different chromosomes.
For much of the year, golden-crowned sparrows are nondescript birds hanging around backyards and brushy areas in the Pacific Coast states. But when spring arrives, their golden crowns turn bright and they migrate north to remote and scenic breeding grounds. They're fairly common in coastal and maritime regions of Alaska, where they breed in thickets of alder and willow. But their plaintive songs can be heard all the way to the cold tundra regions of northwestern Alaska and above tree line on Canadian mountain peaks. They're relatively large, long-tailed, and have heavy black lines bordering golden crowns during the breeding season. The white-crowned sparrow is one of the most abundant and widely distributed of all. It can be seen in winter or migration over almost all of North America. Here on the coast of California, and in some areas of the western mountains, their songs are heard year-round. Different populations vary in song, plumage, and bill color. This Colorado bird has a pinker bill and slightly different stripes than the Californian. Though the range of landscapes where they breed is huge, they all feature dense brush, some bare ground and grass, and usually nearby trees and water. It's also notable as the sparrow with perhaps the longest documented lifespan, 13 years, 4 months.
Though it's fairly common in winter in the central Great Plains, few people experience the Harris's sparrow's haunting song, since it migrates all the way to the edge of tree line in northern Canada to breed. They nest in areas where the boreal forest gives way to the Arctic tundra. Large sparrows with bold markings, they often sing and perch in the open. Some form of the dark-eyed junco is probably familiar to everyone with a backyard bird feeder. They winter over all of the U.S. and southern Canada and are easy to watch foraging on the ground. There's great variation among different populations of the dark-eyed junco, so much so that until the 1970s it was split into 6 separate species. They may look different, but all forms sing a very similar version of a simple trill. The slate-colored form breeds in open woodlands and cutover areas, usually with conifers, from the mountains of Georgia to the boreal forests of the Arctic. It is indeed slate-colored on top, with a neatly contrasting white belly and pink bill. In the west, open forests of the high mountains, from Texas to Oregon, are home to the gray-headed form of the dark-eyed junco. Its head and belly are soft gray, and there's a reddish patch on its back. Farther north in the mountains of central Montana and adjacent corners of Idaho and Wyoming, the dark-eyed juncos sport buffy patches on their sides that earn them the name pink-sided. The dark patches, called lores, in front of their eyes, are also distinctive. All dark-eyed juncos proclaim their territories from prominent perches, and all forms have striking white outer feathers on their tails that are easy to see when the birds take off from the ground. The Oregon version breeds in open woodlands of the far west, from California to southeastern Alaska. Most birders experience the dark-eyed junco as a winter species. They're often even called snowbirds. Males, especially young ones, winter as far north as possible, probably so that they can get back to the mountains and northern forests quickly to compete for territories.
High in the mountains of southeastern Arizona lives the only other species of junco in the U.S., the yellow-eyed junco. They breed in transition and boreal zones, usually 6,000 feet or higher, in mountains from southern Arizona to Central America. Yellow-eyed juncos often spend the winter at lower elevations, but by mid-April, they're back up on the mountaintops. Females do the nest building over a period of 1 to 9 days. They usually choose habitats of open pine woodlands and build under a tuft of grass, a rock, log, or in this case, a fallen piece of bark with just the right ceiling height. The pair remains together through the breeding season and can raise up to 3 broods.
When McCown's longspurs return to their breeding grounds in the northwestern Great Plains and Canadian Prairie provinces, there's excitement in the air, literally. McCown's longspurs have, for me, the most spectacular courtship display of all the sparrows. Males flutter high up into the sky, then hold their wings outstretched to show off the white linings. They spread their tails to display a black T pattern and float to the ground, singing an ebullient, tinkling song. These high-energy displays advertise their territories and get the attention of female McCown's longspurs, who are patterned like males, but with paler plumage. McCown's longspurs are birds of the big sky country, of shortgrass prairies and grazed grasslands. Their range and numbers have declined drastically as plowing, pesticides, and fire suppression have altered huge areas of the Great Plains. Males usually arrive on breeding grounds before females and establish their territories. Once they're paired, they're monogamous, with the male closely guarding his mate and territory. Breeding in such flat space with only a few rocks or cow droppings for perches, it's no wonder the McCown's longspur has such an attention-getting display.
A slightly less ambitious, but still enthusiastic display belongs to the chestnut-collared longspur. Like the McCown's longspur, they migrate from Texas and the Southwest to the prairies of the northern Great Plains and southern Canada. They have also been eliminated from much of their former breeding range. Chestnut-collared longspurs share the big sky landscape with neighboring McCowns. But their range extends further east, and their habitat has slightly more vegetation. When they can find them, chestnut-collards will sing from elevated perches. They have an unmistakable chestnut collar. Females are duller, and males also in the winter, but the black triangle in the center of a white tail is distinguishable year-round. Beautifully colored and patterned, the Smith's longspur undertakes an impressive yearly migration from the south-central U.S. all the way to the edge of tree line in Alaska and the Canadian Arctic, where open tundra becomes the dominant landscape. Smith's longspurs choose areas of the tundra where clumps of grass mix with heaths and small trees. They sing from the ground in low perches, but have no flight display. Males don't defend territories or mates with their songs. They breed in loose colonies, in which females mate with more than one male, and males with more than one female. Females and winter-plumaged males are much duller, but the white outer tail feathers are distinctive year-round.
Though the Arctic tundra is full of hazards for ground-nesting birds, the handsome Lapland longspur is an abundant and widespread species. Its rich warbling song carries through the varying temperatures and winds of the Arctic summer. In the breeding season, males wear striking black plumage from crown to chest. Broad white stripes outline the black and contrast with a reddish nape. In winter, their plumage is duller, and they're found in large flocks in the southern Great Plains. When spring comes, they migrate more than 1,000 miles north to take advantage of the brief but insect-rich Arctic summer. Then they're perhaps the most common bird of the high Arctic tundra of Alaska and Canada.